What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the Galaxy S10 5G. This is a phone we haven't talked about in quite a while, and it's a very interesting phone. I remember when this phone came out, and I just thought it was interesting what Samsung did. But yeah, it's like a $200 phone. You can typically only find it almost on eBay. Sometimes they're on Amazon. But yeah, there'll be about 200 bucks. For an open box one, minor condition one. But it's very interesting phone, very cheap phone as well. And I do want to talk about the overall design. So this is a much bigger phone than the S10 Plus. So this phone is coming in at 6.7 inches, and you can see it's just much bigger than the actual plus size phone. Like I said, it has 5G on it as well too. IP68 dust and water resistant. Basically looks like, you know, a Galaxy S10 has that glossy finish, which does pick up a ton of fingerprints, but overall still a very nice looking design. I'm a big fan of the S10 series design. I actually think it looks much better than the S20. But yeah, you can see the headphone jack down here as well. But the interesting thing that Samsung did with this phone was they took away the SD card support, and you know, they put 5G in it and made it bigger. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It was kind of like, I guess, the first phone from Samsung where they kind of like started to take stuff away. A lot of people think it was the S20 series, but it was technically this phone. Now this phone has a massive display, so I think this was around the time where the data really started to come out that, you know, people just really liked bigger phones, and Samsung has pretty much stuck with this display size around the 6.7 to 6.8 inches. This phone has the 6.7 dynamic AMOLED display. It's HDR10 plus 1440p. 502 for the PPI, and then we do have the double punch hole on the right hand side, and it's still a beautiful panel, just really vibrant. It is a curved panel as well, which I actually like the curved panels. I was never against the curved panels. Yes, applying screen protectors is much harder, but for the most part, I think it still gives it that really nice premium design, but I feel like I'm, you know, in a minority on that one. But yeah, a beautiful display. I think the only thing that's really aged about the display is honestly there's no 120 hertz or anything like that. But yeah, it's a very beautiful and still feels really fast for a 60 hertz panel. Absolutely love the display on here. Even the double punch hole, you really get used to it. You know, after a while, it's really not that big of a deal. Alright, so let's talk about performance on here. The S10 5G is still a performance beast. Honestly, a lot of these phones with the Snapdragon 855 chipset is still going to give you really good performance, and not just good performance but really good optimization. We can still play PUBG on HDR Extreme, really smooth 60 frames on this beautiful panel here. And yeah, I have not run into any issues with heating or lagging. This phone is very, very, very smooth. Its last major OS update was Android 12 One UI 4.1. So in my opinion, you're not really missing anything as far as the software goes, even though, again, this phone is not getting any type of updates, any security updates or anything. But yeah, as far as gaming performance goes, this thing is still a beast. It can pretty much still play, you know, Call of Duty at a high level, pretty much any of the games in the Play Store at a pretty high graphics as well. So this makes for a pretty good, you know, budget, you know, gaming phone. I think it'll do much better than a lot of mid-range phones out there as well. So for reference, here are the Geekbench scores you guys can see and compare them to. These are ran on Android 12. And like I said, software-wise, phone is still really fast. You're not really missing anything as far as software yet, because, you know, One UI hasn't changed that much. You can still pretty much find all the essential features still in this phone, which is really nice. I also want to talk about the fingerprint scanner on here as well too. You do have that. You can do face unlock as well too. It is an ultrasonic and it's very fast as well. One of the most surprising things about this phone, it is the stereo speakers, some of the loudest speakers from Samsung. I mean, these are really loud and really crystal clear. Some of my favorite speakers, they sound almost just as good as the S24 and the S23. The bass is just not as loud, but really impressive speakers on this device. Alright, so just a touch on the image quality here. You still get really good photo quality out of the S10 5G. The only thing is, just like with a lot of these older flagships, is that it might suffer a little in low light situations, and anything pretty much. If it's medium to low light, you might get like a softer or grainier photo. It's got a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel telephoto, 2x optical with a 16 megapixel ultra wide and a 0.3 depth sensor. It can shoot in 4K 60, and then you have a 10 megapixel selfie, and then you also have a depth sensor up front, so that's why you have that dual punch hole, and then that also shoots in 4K 60. Just looking at the image quality, it still takes pretty good pictures. I think the only thing I didn't really like about the cameras were the selfie cam on the S10 series really lightens the skin, really doesn't get the skin tone right, especially if you're like a darker person or whatever. But yeah, so it is pretty good for the most part in good lighting. I think it takes some really good shots. But anything out of good lighting, it can get a little bit grainy and stuff like that. But so far, just me looking at the shots, I actually really think it still takes some pretty great photos. Now again, this is one of those old flagships with really good battery life. It's got a 4500 milliamp hour battery and 25 watt wired charging. You also have the wireless and reverse wireless charging on board. And this is a phone that easily can last all day for me. So no issues with battery life. This is a really good phone. I think one of the best in the S10 series. I know a lot of people, you might not like the SD card support being gone, but like I said, it's a big phone, a bigger display. And yeah, I do really like the display on here. And overall, Snapdragon 855 is still really, really nice. It's really cheap as well too. You can get these $200 and below. And yeah, it's a very interesting phone that Samsung put out. So yeah, so what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.